The next one we're going to do is we're going to merge two things into one, and we are going to cover off recurring billing, and we're going to do that by creating a rental. We are a service business. Everybody in here today, we all work together. We're a service business, and we service customers' equipment. And if it's going to be a long-time service or something like that, they may need to rent one of our replacement units to keep themselves going. And we bill them on a weekly, monthly basis for that. And we want to have that automatically bill until there. We also do just rent equipment as well because, you know, that's one of our business units. Okay. So we need to be able to do that by using the rental loaner system for equipment and recurring billing, which is going to set up the automatic invoicing on the 28th of the month or whatever it is. It's important to understand that recurring billing doesn't have to be tied to rental, and rental doesn't have to be tied to recurring billing. I can put a rental with no billing, and I can do a recurring billing just for a charge that I bill somebody for every month. I'm just merging the two together because they make sense, but the functionalities are not tied in terms of you have to use one if you're using the other. Okay. I'm just going to quickly check my sample data to make sure that we've got some values in here we need. I'm pretty sure we do, but I'm just going to check to make sure. I don't want to waste everybody's time. That looks good. So I'll get everybody to go back to null mode in their job. So what we're going to do is we're going to rent a piece of equipment, something that we own. It's our own piece of equipment. We have it set up in our equipment module as internal equipment, and it's linked to our site ourselves. We're going to rent that to a customer for a period of 6 months. We're going to be billing them every month. Because we're adding some complexity here, because that 6 months goes over January, the first 3 months we're going to be billing them $100 a month, and the last 3 months, which is in the next year, we're going to be billing them $150 a month because our rates are going up by 50%. We want to put all of that into it in one go and not have to ever come back to it again. We want the system to just bill them 6 times, $300 invoices and $350 invoices. We don't want to have to ever come back into that. So we're going to put all of that in one go. Everyone good with that? That's what we're doing? All right. So go ahead and click your Go button to start a new job. Put in your site 1100. Now in the type field, what I want you to do is change that to rent. Now you don't need a type called rent, to do this. It's just that we have one in the sample data, so let's use it. It makes sense, right? We now know that this is a rental job. We're doing a rental on there. You got it? I'm just going to show you something, guys, because we forgot to turn it on yesterday. I've just put my customer, I've given them a credit limit of $10,000. So I just want to show you what happens when that is the case. You don't have to do it to your systems. So if you remember yesterday, I told you that you will be warned about credit and all that sort of stuff. So you'll see here, as soon as I put in the customer number, I get the credit. I can see here that they're currently $2,733 above credit. So straight away, as soon as I enter the customer, I know where their credit status is. Okay. You'll also see that it says up the top here now, credit limit $10,000, click to review. So at any point, even if the job's been open for months, I can go in and click that icon to see what their current credit status is at any point. Okay. All right, so you should all be here now. Just make sure you come down and take that agreement off again for me, as always. Tomorrow we will actually, this afternoon we will actually do agreements. We'll actually not take that off. We'll actually be using it. It's going to be, are you excited? Don, are you excited? Your face is just, he's like this. All right, has everybody got basically what I've got there? Got your customer in there, got your rent, and you've taken off your agreement? Go ahead and click accept. What I will get you to do now is come to the setup tab. So over here in your details panel where you've got your totals and all that sort of stuff, your last one is set up. And under processing method here, you need to change this to recurring posting. Now we are going to make this a fixed length contract. We're renting it to them for 6 months. We're going to put those months in. We're going to predefine them. The system can absolutely support unlimited contracts that just automatically recur. So you go in and say, I want to bill them on the 28th of every month. At the end of that month, it'll just create another one for next month and another one for the one after that and another. It'll just keep going until you go in and say, stop billing them, right? This is going to be one of those ones where we do it, where we put in the fixed values. And of course, even with a fixed value, at the end, 5 months in, your customer might give you a call and say, we need it for a few more months, and I can just add a few more months to it. It's not a problem. But it's not doing it just automatically. I've defined what those periods are. Did everybody get a chance to add recurring posting? You'll know if you've done that because in your document tree, you'll get a new node here that says schedule transactions. All right, let's put in our schedule. If you just watch my screen quickly, guys, if you are wanting to do one of those automated ones where it just keeps going, you'll see there's a recurring invoice flag here, and you can see it says auto create the next schedule, and that's how you would set that up. But we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is come into our document tree, bless you, come into our document tree, and you can see here we've got scheduled transactions. Go ahead and double click on that. What we want to do here is we have two options really. We have the option to create from a schedule. Do you remember yesterday I went in and I said I created a schedule the 3rd Tuesday of every month? So we could link this to that and say we want it to run for 6 months, or we can just use the quick way of doing that if we're using defined periods where there's a quicker way of doing that. So up the top here, I want you to change it to be multiple entry by frequency. Change your dates here. So when you choose multi-entry by frequency up the top, this panel here will open. Change this to be a 6 months here. So I've got April the 1st and I'm going to October the 1st and set my frequency to monthly. And then you can click preview if you want, and you should see 6 entries and you can have a look at what those are. Okay, so you should have what I've got there, which is a 6-month period. If you go ahead now and click insert down the bottom, you'll see it puts in those 6 periods. So these are going to be our billing periods. We're going to be billing on Wednesday, April the 1st, Friday, May the 1st, so on and so forth. You will see I have a Saturday in there. We don't work on Saturdays. It's not a problem. The way scheduled transactions work is when I come in on Monday and say run my scheduled postings, it's going to be up until Monday. Anything that was due that hasn't been posted up until today, which would of course include the Saturday. If you were very picky and you didn't ever want any of your transactions to be posted on a weekend, you can of course double click that line and change it to be the next Monday. But because schedules are sequential, we can see the days, 30, 31, 30, or 31. What's going to happen if you do that is the month above will now have 33 days in it. So that month you'd be invoicing for 33 days. So you need to be aware if you're actually billing based on the amount of days, which you can do. You could set the quantity to be the day value. You need to be aware that manipulating your dates like that means you're going to be pushing more billing into one month and less in another just to get it on a Monday. So just keep that in mind. But it's important to be aware that even though that is a Saturday, when I come in on the Monday and I run my postings, it's going to be picked up. You can't miss it, okay? So don't worry about that. Okay. Once you've done that, guys, click Save. You'll come back to your document, and you'll see now in your document tree, it's going to list to you all of your schedules, and you're going to see that the top one will be due, okay? As long as you set the top one to be your date that you're logged into the system. So what we know now, think about what we're doing. We're creating a rental contract for a piece of equipment. What we know now is when we are going to bill. That we've done that. We have that. We're good to go. Is everyone good with that? Yes? The next step, of course, is what are we billing for? This is a rental contract for equipment. What are we billing for? So we want to put the equipment onto this job to say that's what we're billing for. So come down and highlight your phase and click your equipment button. And this time what I want you to do is in this first pull down here is change that to internal equipment. Let me just start that again. I highlighted my phase. And I'm sorry guys, as I said, I am going to have to get a little faster as we go along. So I highlighted my phase. I'm clicking my equipment button up here in my small buttons. And I'm changing that to internal equipment. Those of you who are using the same system, you all need to choose a different equipment number. Go ahead, everybody, and choose your first one in the list for those of you who are independent. For me, that's equipment 72. All right, so now that I've got my internal equipment, so I've got here internal equipment, and I've got equipment 72. Everybody, you know, should have 72 for those of you who are in separate 72, 73, 74, and 75, I guess. What you're dealing with now is down here. Got this internal transfer section here. So we can see right now that the equipment is currently available and it's at my internal site, int LA, which is my site, right, that I deal with. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say transfer it to the site and return it when the job is complete. So what's going to happen is it's going to mark the equipment now as being at the customer side. It's also going to be marked as on loan/rented. And I would be able to run a report and say, show me all of my equipment that's mine, but is currently at customer sites based on that data. Does that make sense? Sorry? Correct, like, or if you're just trying to figure out where all your equipment is, right? So it's going to do that. It's also going to create a transfer history. So when I look at the history of the equipment later on, years down the track, I'll see, you know, on this date it was transferred from me to this customer, then it came back on this date, then a week later I transferred it to this customer, 3 months later it came back. I'll see all of that for the history of the equipment. Does that make sense? So again, I know when we're billing. I've now figured out what we're billing for, and of course I could add 5 pieces of equipment here, each of them doing the same thing. We're just going to do one. So go ahead and click accept on that. So our last step, of course, is how much are we going to be billing them for? Everybody good so far? So you should be highlighted on your equipment node in the tree. So what I'll get you to do now is again come up into your little buttons here and click on bill. And now we're going to add a service, our little red briefcase. Go ahead and click on service. Now in this pull down here, this first pull down, we're going to change it from labor to service. And there should be a rental charge in there. There most certainly is. And once you've selected that, I'd like you to come over here to the description and change it to first 3 months. As we said, what we're going to do is we're going to bake into this contract the recipe to say for the first 3 months we're billing them $100, and for the last 3 months we're billing them for $150. We're putting that into the system right away, so we don't have to come back and mark it or flag it somehow and remember to check it up and run a report, show me my schedules that I need to go and update the pricing on. I'm putting it in right now. So we're going to put this one in, so come down to our price field here and enter in $100. So let me cover off the things that are a little different here. This is a recurring job. As you've noticed before, or hopefully, every time we've posted in the past, it's gone through and set all the supply quantities back to 0. With a recurring job, that is not the case. So every time that this posts, these values will not be cleared out because you want it to recurringly post these every time. You also have an extra option here, up here, which says apply the cycle days to the quantity. So what that means is right now we are invoicing 1 at $100. If we tick that on, then our first month would be 30 at 100, the second month would be 31 at 100. It's the amount of days in the period. So if you were charging them a daily rate, you would use that option because depending on how long the invoice periods were, it would invoice them the quantity that matched how many days were in there. All right, so you've got flexibility there on how you do that billing. It is important to remember that while this is a 6-month contract, you don't put in here $600 and it's going to divide it by the periods. You put in what you want it to bill every period. So we want to bill $100 a month for the first 3 months. That's why we're doing this one at $100. Does that all make sense to everybody? Yeah? So go ahead. If you've got that in as $100, so all you should have done here is put in rental charge, change the description here to first 3 months, and made it $100. Go ahead and click accept. What we want to do now is add in our last 3 months. So just click your little service briefcase again. Again, add in your standard service charge of rental. And this time I'm putting in last 3 months. And I'm setting that one to be $150. Once I've done that, I click accept. Now, if I was to look at my totals right now, I've got $250 sitting there ready to be billed, and I don't want that. I want to bill them $100 for the first 3 months, and then $150 after that. So how do I tell the system now to bill those lines in that way? So we do that using what we refer to as start and stop postings. Now, start and stop postings is another one of those features that we're using right now for recurring, but we can use it at any way. And a really common way to do this is people will put a charge on a job and say, don't bill this charge until the 17th of next month. It'll just sit there. It won't be able to be billed until the 17th of next month. And then it will become live for billing. So that doesn't even have to be a recurring job. That can just be a job that gets billed at the end of every week. You've got a charge you want to charge them for, but you want to preset it into the software and have it bill at a certain date. You can do that using the start, stop postings. Yep. So let's start with the first line. So we want this first line to invoice for the first 3 months. So what I'm going to get you to do is highlight that first line, right click, come down about 5 icons or menu items, and you'll see there's one there that says start and stop postings. Go ahead and go into that. And you want to tick on this bottom one here, and then choose the first option and say 3, and I'll explain them in a second. So you'll see here what we're saying is stop posting this line after the document itself has already been posted 3 times. In other words, post this line for the first 3 invoices. So now the system, because it's recurring, 1 posting, it'll be there. 2 posting, it'll be there. 3 posting, it'll be there. 4th one, no, because it's stopped after the 3rd one. Does that make sense? Conversely, the next line, so click accept on that, you're going to come down to the next line, you're going to right click, you're going to start stop, and you're going to use the top option. I want to start this one after the job has been posted 3 times. So now the first one will run for the first 3 postings, the last one will run for the last 3 postings. So when I look at my totals now, I can see my gross revenue is back to $100 because it's automatically stopped that $150 one. If you actually look at the icons, the lines went red. Lines are only ever read in a document if they have start stop. So it's very visible when you go in that those lines have start and stop, so you can check out what those are, okay? You can also see that at any time here. So you don't even have to go into it. You can see here it says limit by document postings 3. So you'll see that visible for you when you just click on the line. If I look at the one below, it says delay by document postings 3, okay? So you always see that there. It's red, so I know that. But if you look at the bottom one on your screen, you'll notice what it is it's got a little red stop sign. So what the system is actually doing is it's holding the line. And you can do this manually on any line that you add to a job. You can highlight a line and click hold. The line will be on hold until you unhold it. It cannot post. So all the system is doing in the background with the start stop is automatically managing that hold process. So if it's supposed to have stopped, it will hold the line. If it's stopped and it's supposed to start eventually, when it's due to start, it'll unhold the line for you. So it's just doing that internal process for you automatically. And that's it. This would now invoice on those dates. I'm going to invoice mine. I won't get you to invoice yours, but I'll invoice mine to show you. It's going to automatically do that for the next 3 months. I'm going to get a $100 invoice. And then the 3 months after that, I'm going to get a $150 invoice. As I said, if the customer was to call you and say, oh, we need to keep it for another 3 months, all you would do is you'd open this back up, you'd double click on your transactions, and you just add some more dates in there to extend it out. Okay? You can keep it going that way. It's pretty easy, right? I'm going to show you how to post that. I won't get you all to do that now. So all of the recurring postings, anything that has a recurring posting on it, is done, strangely enough, by the program called recurring postings. It's actually called posting schedules, but okay, so you can see here posting schedules. So if I come into that, let me open up my job again here quickly for you. You'll see my first one here, just watch mine guys. My first one here is due on April the 1st. To indicate, to show you that Saturday scenario, I'm going to come in here and pretend that I came in on April the 3rd. You'll see up the date here, there's a date that says, what date am I running this till? So imagine I logged in and it was April the 3rd, and I didn't do that April the 1st. I missed it because I wasn't there that day. I was sick, whatever it was, right? I'm the person that runs these on a daily, weekly basis. So I've come in and it's now April the 3rd. You can see here I'm doing recurring jobs. I have other type of recurrings that I can do, but I'm going to post my invoices for recurring jobs. When I click go, there it is. And you can see here it was actually due on April the 1st. So I haven't missed it. It's not possible to miss it. It's always going to come through, right? Because that date is as up until date. It's not a specific date. So it's find everything that was due up until that date. Jaime, here's your option here. When I do my post, what will the document date be? Set it to the schedule, set the document and the posting date to the schedule, or set it to a specific date, okay? Now, unfortunately, I've only got one in here. What I'm going to do here, guys, just really quickly, is I'm going to create another one just so we can see more than one. You just give me a second. Okay, so now I have two. So as you can imagine, it's going to load on all your schedules that are due to be posted up until that date. Obviously, I can review. I've got filters here to say only show me ones of certain statuses, types, all of that sort of stuff, so I can group my postings together if I need to. I might have rentals, I might have PM recurrings, I might have all different types of recurrings, and I want to do them as batches. Or theoretically, I do the rentals, this person does the PM ones, and this person does the other ones. So we all go in and do our own. So I can filter out by different types, statuses, all of that sort of stuff, which is going to filter my list here in the bottom. Once I've got the list, I can, of course, even then say, no, not that one right now. But I want to do them all, so I just click post. That's going to run through them all, post the relevant invoices. You can see that they were both posted. And do I want to print the invoices? I can say yes. And this is where you got your email. So you can see here, I could say, you know, email the customer the invoices, that sort of thing is directly from in here. You'll also see at the top here, it says from invoices. It knows that it came from the posting screen, and so it's going to just email out or send out the invoices for the ones that were just generated. Okay, so you don't have to put those values in. It knows which ones they were. And so that's your posting schedule. So you just come in on your daily or weekly basis and run your posting schedules, generate your 10, 20, 30, 100 invoices for the week, the month, or whatever the period is, and email them out or send them out or however you get them out. And there's your contracts being billed each time. Yep. Okay, so the question was, what is the difference between a reoccurring job and a reoccurring posting on a regular job? So a reoccurring posting on a regular job is going to take the job that it is, job number one, you've put on some billing on there, and each month, each week, whatever, job number 1 is going to get a new invoice. Invoice 1, invoice 2, invoice 3, invoice 4, all for job number 1. A recurring job is a job, recurring job number 1, that every time it recurs generates a new job. Job 1, job 7, job 43, job 92, which means that each of those jobs is its own thing. This job can have 11 lines of billing, that one can have 12 lines with 15 notes, this one was scheduled, that one wasn't. The recurring job generates a job that is its own thing. That job can then be invoiced. Does that make sense? Exactly. Yep. Yep. So you use a recurring invoice on a job when it's the same thing, right? I have a job and I'm just going to bill you $1,000 a month. That's it. And we do the same thing every month. So that can just be a job with a recurring invoice. If you're going to have a scenario where you go out, let's say every month as a contract, and when you get there every month, what you do could be different every month, you want a recurring job, which creates a new job every month. And each of those jobs is its own thing. It can be completely different month to month, and you invoice them manually. Does that make sense? All right. If I come back now, guys, and look at my job, you'll see here that under my schedule straight away, you'll see that this one was posted and it gives you the invoice number. So as that recurrence goes through its life cycle, you'll see each of them being posted, what its relevant invoice number that it was for that posting schedule, and all of that sort of stuff. You'll also notice if I open this line, you'll see it didn't clear out these supply quantities because it's recurring. It's going to bill that again next month. Whereas all the other jobs that we did when we reopened a line that we'd billed, all those values had been set back to 0, right? So just be aware of that. So it's just the same. You still put in your lines. You still got your service icons where they were. The notes are still there. All the functionality that we've covered off is all still there. The only difference is that it's automatically invoicing. Well, I say automatically. You have to run that screen, but it's doing that invoicing for you monthly. Well, I say monthly, but again, it could be the 3rd Tuesday of every 7th month. Okay, so that's our recurring postings. And as I said, we mix that with the equipment rental, but I want to be very, 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 very clear, okay? If you watch my screen here again, guys, imagine this is a job here that I'm repairing this equipment here for this customer, okay? There's no recurring schedule on this, none at all. And I say to the customer, look, we're going to have to keep this for a couple of weeks. And he says, well, do you have a loaner that you can give me? Yeah, I do. You can come in here and you can say internal equipment, and I can transfer it to him, and I've still got that same result. But there's no scheduled transaction. I'm just saying I've loaned you a piece of equipment and I'm expecting it back at some point. Whether I charge them for that or not, it'd probably be a one-off charge. If it wasn't a contract like that, I could put a charge in there as well if I needed to. But you see the addition of that rental equipment is not tied specifically to recurring, okay? And the other good thing to look at there is when I look at that customer's equipment list now, you'll see that there are the 2 pieces of equipment I loaned him. They're in blue, and it says at the end, on-site rented equipment. So while they are listed as being on his site, I can clearly see that they're ones that I've loaned or rented or charged or whatever for, okay? So I have that history in there and I can see that. So I can't lose my equipment at any point, all right? And you guys might even use that if you've got equipment that's for your area and you're loaning it to one of your other areas for a month or 2, you could still do that. So you've got the history of where it went, who's got it right now, all that sort of stuff. It doesn't have to be customer based, okay? I'm on a job for this customer and I went and looked at their equipment list. So that's all, right? If I was in the customer record, it's the same. If I came out here to the customer record, the site record, and I loaded up my site and said, what equipment do they have? I've got an equipment button down here. It's the same screen and I can see there's those 2 pieces of equipment, okay? When I look at these, if I look at the history here, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn off everything but transfers. You can see here, the equipment was transferred from the internal LA site to the 1100 site. So I get that history as well. So in 6 months' time, when the rental contract ends, for example, and they bring me back my equipment, then the next one would say transferred from 1100 back to internal. So that history is always there as well. So you can run reports on that to identify how many times it's been rented, what were the periods between those dates, all of that sort of, the data is there, right, for you to act on if you need to, okay? So there's two ways of doing that. So the question was, how do we get it back now? What if the customer comes back in and says, oh, well, I don't need this anymore, right? So imagine they come in, we've invoiced them for 3 months, they come in and they hand it back and they say, look, we just don't need it anymore, cancel it, right? Obviously, I need to end the scheduled billing, right? Now, how do I do that? Well, I'd actually marked it already to say return on complete. So if I complete this job, it'll automatically return the equipment. But there are instances, imagine if I put 15 pieces of equipment on there and they brought back 7 of them. What you can do then is if you right click, you've got here, return internal equipment. You get a list of all the ones, you tick on the ones you want to return and click return and they'll all come back. It won't stop billing, no. I mean, if you complete the job, it'll stop billing. But my example here was you've rented them 15 and they've brought back 7. Of course you would. Not for those 7. You want to keep billing them for the other 7. Yes. Well, well, that depends on whether you've built the billing in per equipment, you've given them a separate rate per equipment, or you put a total rate. If you've done a total rate, then you would need to adjust the total rate to be, you know, if it was $100 per equipment, you'd take off $700, right? You're still going to have to manage that. It's not going to automatically do that. Okay? No, you'd have to hold that yourself, yeah. That's a very good question. Thank you for that. I was just about to show that. So the question was, what if this equipment is already on one job and you try to rent it on another? So here's equipment 72, which I've rented. I'm going to come into this job and try to add that same piece of equipment. Warning, this equipment is on-site rented. Are you sure you want to add it to this job? Sure. So you are able to add it, but you'll notice here that I can't say transfer to site. So I'm able to add it, but I can't loan it to this site yet. So it just shows me there, because maybe I'm going to put it on this job now to get it in there, and then when it comes back, I'm going to give it to them. And so then when it comes back, those return buttons would be available to me. All right, so you can still preset it up, but not finalize it. All right, so it's a pretty good system. It does handle a lot of stuff. We are not a rental system. Let's put that out there, right? We're not something that, you know, an entire rental business, you know, maybe there's probably a better choice for their software, but certainly service businesses that do repairs and loaners and stuff like that, it generally covers all the functionality that they would need and covers that pretty well, okay? We don't cover things like balloon things and, oh, I brought it back 7 days early and the system automatically recalculates the totals. You're getting the calculator out and you're figuring out those 7 days and stuff like that. So that's where the rental stuff isn't, you know, it's not rental software, okay? We're not Hertz. So. All right, so that's your, so again, what we covered off there was our recurring postings. Again, highlight that that is its own thing. It doesn't have to be mixed with rentals. And rentals, which again, doesn't have to be mixed with recurring postings.